It's weird because I wasn't 100% sure, but it seemed like it changed when Richard joined. But I started hearing it through your channel. I'm like, I don't know. Like,
maybe the AI embedded somewhere that we don't know is trying to compensate for extra channels.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
The AI is secretly the fifth host.
I don't know that it's secretly the fifth host at this point. I think it's kind of an open secret.
Well, I mean, considering the entire Patreon is convinced that you're actually AI, despite the fact that a number of them have met you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that I'm that convincing in real life either. So, you know.
Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast that's standing on the precipice. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
And yes, we are standing on the precipice of a new edition finally being fully released. We've had a slow drip of rules, which has increased in speed, but we're still not fully there. As of time of recording, we are 1 week away from the official release of the Armageddon box and the new rules and the new mission decks and everything. Obviously, some outlets have received early copies. We were not among them, unfortunately. So we are right in the trenches with the rest of you, kind of picking things up as we go along from various news sources. But we do have, obviously, what's been released on Warhammer Community, which is the core rules and all the faction packs and the event packs, which I was surprised to see them releasing those this early. Normally, that's one of the last things I would think they release. But right. We're just going to kind of walk through everything in order. The only place to begin is the beginning. So let's start with June 1st, when the core rules were released. And so we have the full core rule document, which is supposedly the same as what's in the small factor rule book that's included in Armageddon, and that has been put up for pre-order yesterday for standalone books, which I believe are also amazingly still available.
Yeah. One thing that I guess surprised me, because I remember in the past a lot of times the slim rule book was only in the battle box, and otherwise you had to buy the big rule book that had all the pictures, the lore, all that stuff. And the fact that the core rules small book is a separate order that you can just do, I think is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They made small factor like hardcover rule books available, I want to say in 8th. But yeah, it was very limited. So I like the fact that the small rule book is available and out there for people. And what this either means, the fact that these rule books and like the Armageddon box is like still available, either means that GW actually like went through and produced enough of these things that there won't be shortages, or the hobby is dying and we're all screwed.
I'm going to say more column A than column B.
It's one or the other. Not to be alarmist, it's going to be one or the other. We're either doing great or everything is awful.
I think there's still plenty of people playing the game.
Yeah,
I just think a lot of them don't want Space Marines and Orcs.
I actually agree with that too. Like, I'm not saying that like, oh my god, the hobby's dying, but it is odd that like the Armageddon box is like, well, let me check real quick.
It is still available while stocks last.
Yeah, it's still available on the website, which means that hopefully they just produced a lot of it. The rule books and stuff like that are still available. Hopefully they means they produced a lot.
I had at all the local game stores, it sounded like they got their entire orders at the local game stores here with Armageddon. So I think they actually printed a lot, because new edition, you want to get everyone into it.
Well, it wasn't 9th edition with the Indominus box where they short printed everything. Granted, that was during COVID. And then they did the, like, hey, as a mea culpa, like, hey, if you want one, order it and we'll print it for you. And it just might take a few months. So maybe they learned from that and like, okay, we're just going to overproduce this. And it's not the worst thing in the world to have extra starter boxes sitting on shelves if it comes down to it. And like the orc, at a certain price, the orc part of it's going to sell no matter what, because those models are awesome. Yeah.
I'm curious to see if this is going to be kind of a like Age of Sigmar Scaventide situation where they made so many of them that like next year at Adepticon they'll just be giving them away. But
if they want to throw a starter box in my swag bag for the Grand Narrative, I am.
But the thing I was most concerned about was the decks, like especially the mission deck.
Yes.
That is fundamental to how the game is played, and that was the thing I was worried that because last couple of years when they've had them up, they disappear immediately. Like they just did not produce enough of them. That does not seem to be the issue. And so between all the people buying Armageddon boxes and the people buying the standalone decks, it seems like there's enough out there that everyone who wants one will be able to get them. I think the price on the decks is a little much at $35. That's a little more than I would like to pay for a deck of cards, especially considering the core rule book is a $25 softcover, which is one of the best prices they've ever had on a rule book. So kudos to pricing that reasonably. And it's also, acknowledging that, hey, there's a free downloadable option if you don't want to pay even $25. The only thing that sold out is the area terrain set. And I think that's kind of understandable because whereas all the rest of these are kind of like one per player products, that's a product where like, if you're a store or an organizer, you're probably buying several. So that's one where I can definitely see that making sense, that there wouldn't be like that those would sell it faster, but they are also listed as temporarily out of stock, meaning they're going to keep making them. Now it's $33 for a bunch of cardboard, whether that's a fair price considering there's lots of alternatives out there.
Well, in fact, and I'll also give GW props for this. One of the downloads they give you is the footprint of the terrain.
Yep.
So you could just print it out on cardstock yourself, cut it out with scissors, you're good to go. So it's just, I will agree, nicer to have like cardboard or acrylic to like have down there, but or plastic. But the fact that GW has given you an option that you can just download and print, I find amazing.
Or you can, go the route that you went, Dennis, and get the Frontline Gaming pre-printed like hardboard sets.
Yeah, I this is not a Frontline Gaming does not sponsor us, and I actually paid for this, but it arrived yesterday, and I'm in awe. Here, I'll do this again. It's solid. All the pieces are there. They match exactly what GW had listed out, even with all the little side bumps too. Nice. So I'm very happy with it. My only small knock on it would be it's makes things a little heavier to carry if I was to like take this to my friendly local game store. But to your point, Rob, I think a lot of the game stores are looking to either build or have some train sets of their own for people to use in the stores.
Mm. So I do have a question on the terrain stuff. So if I have a unit that's toe in on one of the little notches, does that count as being on the... Sorry.
Yep.
I did see that conversation in Discord. I haven't been completely out of the loop for the last 2 weeks, but it feels mostly like it.
Yeah, because in the original pictures, they just showed like rectangles, but then when you saw GW's things, and everyone says all these little bumps and notches. So yeah, it's part of the terrain feature if it's on there.
Esoteric rules arguments are the funnest part of 40K, for sure.
Are they? Are they really? Because I'm going to say they're probably not.
Yeah, totally. That's totally a non-sarcastic statement.
and yeah, if you want something like the Frontline Gaming option is $55, which is it's more expensive than the GW version. There's lots of other vendors like on Etsy, and I think Green Stuff World was doing a set of acrylic bases. It's like there's lots of options, and as you mentioned, Dennis, you can print your own. They provided the PDF with the color templates on there. It is sized at like 17 by like 13 inch. It's the weird like I think A5 size or A3. I don't know how British paper sizes work. I know A4 is roughly equivalent to letter, but beyond that, I can't remember if it goes bigger or smaller as the paper gets bigger or smaller. So. But yeah, this is a very accessible edition, at least as far as these materials and being able to buy them. Now, as far as the rules themselves, there's something that they put like right up front, like on page 5. And it's one of the things about the core rule document that's got me a little concerned in kind of a monkey's paw kind of way. So they do a big ad for Warhammer 40,000, the app. And they give you a QR code. Yeah, they give you a QR code to scan for the app. And, it's like, okay, fine, that's cool. Put the app at, in, link to the rule book. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Where I get concerned is on the following pages, references to additional app content are highlighted in green as shown below, and they show what one of these is going to be. There's a lot of those in here. There's a lot of those in the core rulebook.
I mean, my take on that is, well, twofold. One, my haha thing is, man, remember when Prima Guide started doing that for Nintendo stuff?
I was thinking that when I saw that, my initial thought was the Final Fantasy IX strategy guide.
Yes.
You know.
But on the flip side, we know that the rules constantly change. And by them having the links to the app, that's the easy way to get out there. And we've been asking for a sort of living system. I think it might be too living right now. But the fact that they create it in a way that they can modify it and balance it, I appreciate that. And like you were alluding to earlier, Rob, if you put it in print, it's in print. And then people get annoyed like, man, I've got it in print, but all the print's outdated at like 3 months later.
I get where you're coming from.
It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Half dozen of the other. But here's my issue with some of this. I'm starting with the core concepts page. We're at the beginning of the rules. Also, kudos. We knew they were going to do this, but also love the fact that the rules are all like identified by rule numbers, so it's easy to go to a section. It's easy to cross-reference. If an issue comes up, you know where to go in the rule book to find it. That's cool. However, on the core concepts page, in their C also, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 items listed in the sidebar of things that need to be cross-referenced. Of those 12, 2 of them are in this rule book. The frame rule for vehicles and the command phase for talking about battle shock rules. Now, I understand the idea of, if they have rules that they're going to have to change or going to have to clarify, it's good to have those in the app, right? But we're talking about things like re-rolls.
Table quarters.
The closest model, within or wholly within. These are things that should be in the core rules.
Is rolling dice a core concept of 40K? I mean, I would argue that it's
absolutely.
not. I would argue it's not. I would argue it's very secondary. Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
That seems a little weird. The other thing I'll say about this, and perhaps this is going to change, I doubt it, I would be far less annoyed with so much of this being in the app if the app wasn't paywalled. If the app was free and you just had access to this, that'd be great. The fact that I have to buy a Warhammer Plus subscription to be able to unlock the app and see most of this, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see how much of this is in the free side of the app. Because, I think, the core rules have traditionally been free, but everything else, the army construction has been very limited if you're a free user. And obviously, army rules are locked codex by codex. So we are not in our glorious digital distribution age yet. And I'm concerned that some of the things that are in here listed as this is additional app content is stuff that really should be in this document. And it's also a bit frustrating, and partially from a podcaster standpoint, but also from a player standpoint, is that some groups who have been doing previews have gotten access to an advanced copy of the app too, because they have, or the rules from the app, which I think, is it Hellstorm Wargaming that I was watching, where they got them, but they're in the raw HTML that gets loaded into the app. So it's readable, but it's not easily readable, but you can read the rules. And there are rules in there that you would think would be part of the core rules that are not. But we'll get there when we get there. But I'm concerned about how much they're trying to offload into the app. And yeah, the idea like this could be paywalled is not great. But we'll see what happens with that.
I guess we'll know when we get our rule books if they have a code in the back. Oh.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like we going into data sheets again, we've got sidebars for characteristic modifiers. That still feels like something that should probably be in the core rules. The definition of destroyed. What random characteristics mean. There's a few things in here. Mixed keywords and units. That feels like something that's kind of important to know how they're going to work. We get into moving units. Pivots are gone. We are not paying for pivots anymore. That's been
thank
confirmed.
God.
Also,
such a dumb rule.
only one item in here that requires a cross-reference to the app, random movement. Everything else is cross-referenced. Love that. Love that.
Yay.
Then we get into more moving rules. So it's also interesting. We have the rules for moving, which is not the rules for the movement phase. That's separate in the rule book. A little bit weird, but because there are multiple ways you can move, it's like, this is how everything moves. You may move at different points in the game, and we'll cover those when we get there. Then we get to the coherency rules, and this has already caused issues. There are already people trying to game this in dumb ways.
Right.
So the old coherency rules were every model had to be within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of at least one other model in that unit, unless the unit was more than 5 models, and then they had to be within coherence of 2 models in the unit, which kept you from stringing out long conga lines. They've decided to get rid of the, and if it's higher than 5 inches, you have to like double it up. They have now just put a 9-inch bubble saying that an entire unit must exist within 9 inches. But the full rules, as written, are within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of at least one other model in that unit, and within 9 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of every other model in that unit. This has led to weirdos trying to game the system and say, well, I have these 2 models at this side of 9 inches, and these 2 models at the other side of 9 inches. They are within 2 inches of another model and at least one other model in the unit, and the entire unit's within 9 inches. This is very clearly incoherency.
Technically, yes, until they lose a model. Then they'll lose 2 models.
Right. Yeah. It isn't. This is not really, I think, what's intended. And
you think that's not what they
I'm
intended?
pretty sure that's not what's intended. And yet there are people plugging away like, oh no, that's clearly what's meant. What's meant for this.
I will also say, to defend what GW put, even in the narrative that we ran in May at Midwest Conquest, there was one point where the Blood Angels player charged a bunch of, I don't remember if it works Necrons, but anyway, they spread their things out so they were all within base contact. But because of where his character models were, he was pulling from the middle. And in that regards, we had to rule that, yes, he was now out of coherency. Mm-hmm. But had we been using these rules, that one unit would still be in coherency, and they only were spread out the way they were due to the fact they were in engagement range. So I can see places where unintentionally this is good.
So I'm going to say something here that I never thought I would say on this podcast. I'm going to give some praise to one-page rules. I know I've said some, not harsh things, but I'm not the biggest fan of one-page rules. But my God, they got unit coherency right. These are the unit coherency rules from one-page rules, Grimdark Grimdark Future rules 3.4.1. Unit coherency: all models in the unit must always stay within. They use 1 inch instead of 2 inch. All models in a unit must stay within 1 inch of at least one other model and must stay within 9 inches of all other models. This sounds very familiar. Next sentence: forming an uninterrupted chain of models in 1 inch coherency with each other.
Yeah.
That last line fixes this issue.
True. Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is not one of the items that is app specific. This is hard coded in the rules. Now, obviously, uninterrupted chain is the intention, and they do mention in, like, there's a little sidebar next to coherency saying what is coherency that says coherency prevents models in the same unit from being too separated from each other while in the battlefield, ensuring that they are set up and end every kind of move as a single group. Very clearly, this is intended and does state in the definition of what coherency is, that they are supposed to look like a single group. And obviously, if you have 2 guys over here and 2 guys over here, and there's a huge gulf between them, that's 2 groups. So this is one of those cases where I think the intention was good. I think it was a way to have units not feel like it was always weird when it's like, oh, well, I don't have the perfect triangle of guys here, so I'm going to lose an extra guy.
Mm.
This is a better way to do it, but they needed that uninterrupted chain line that One Page Rules has. Had that, and this is completely solved.
I mean, on the flip side, I am still happy about the 9-inch because I see a lot of stringing along of like 12, 15, 18 inches because you've just got so many, especially the 20 unit or 20 person units. They can chain out a long way.
They can.
Now they can't, which I'm
now they can't. This is an argument, and I've seen a few arguments thrown this direction based on like missions and the way terrain works and such, that this is going to be another multiple small unit or MSU edition.
Yes.
And this definitely leans toward that because big blobs are very hard to fit in this. Like, especially when you get to larger base sizes. Like, I imagine a mob of 20 orcs is going to just be a big, like, all the models smushed together.
I mean, that's generally what I do with them anyway, because you want to get the most of them in combat.
True. And with engagement range now being 2 inches, that will allow you to get a lot of them in combat.
Yeah.
Since we're no longer doing the within 1 inch or within base to base of somebody who's within an inch. So it's just 2 inches straight up. But this is like the first stress point where the rules are kind of creaking a little bit. Most of the rules I think are pretty solid, but we're definitely seeing a couple of weak points pop up here and there. That's going to happen in every edition. I don't think it's a game breaker, and this is something that can easily be fixed with 1 line of errata. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Especially since we know GW likes to errata things.
Yeah.
We're just worried that the errata is going to make it worse.
Oh, okay.
That's always a risk. That's always a risk. We get into making attacks, which basically, covers the fact that shooting and fighting follow a similar model, just that it depends on, like, you're firing with all your ranged weapons or fighting with 1 melee weapon, and range is obviously a thing, but the mechanics are the same, so they cover those nicely. Random characteristics are still app specific. The phrase target no longer eligible or viable is app specific, which that's one where it gets a little into the weeds in some cases. That would be kind of a rule commentary topic anyway, so that one doesn't bother me as much. Multiple weapon profiles, though, does seem like it should be in the core rules because there's a lot of weapons that have multiple profiles, especially for melee, so that's a thing that should probably be discussed. Then we get into save rolls and how fast rolling works now, and this is a big change. And I know a lot of people have discussed this, and it is a big shift into how we've done things. First off, fast rolls being officially incorporated in the rules is a good move. Like, acknowledging this is how people play, and the fast rolls until I don't want there to be fast rolls, so I can try to game good saves and tank with somebody. Who among us has not done this? I know I certainly have.
I would never.
Yes, you would. So many times. And, characters have to be in their own group. Different characters with different save profiles have to be in different groups. You roll all the saves, and from worst to best, you start applying them. So like, if you have a squad of, let's say, like a mixed squad where half the squad has invulnerable saves, half the squad has armor, and there's a character attached, you would have 3 groups. You would have the group that just has armor, you would have the group that has an invulnerable save, and then you would have the character. All the bad saves, like starting from like the 1s and working your way to the 6s, the lowest saves get applied to that first squad, and then when they're all dead, then you start applying them to the tankier squad, and then eventually if they all die, then you can apply them to the character. It makes sense. Yeah, like I don't have a big deal with it. What I find interesting is how precision plays into it, because precision literally turns that on its head, where characters have to be the first target. Precision got a huge buff.
I'm going to be weird. I think Precision needed it. Because the way things are now, Precision, well, I don't know. It's probably going to end up being the same, but every time I do my Precision, I might do like 2 or 3 wounds. But all the saves are on that character. In this case, you're doing the saves, you're just rolling all the dice and then applying the results to the saves. So it might just pan out, but it feels like it should hit characters more. The Precision should.
It should. I think the side effect will be, and I think this works with what the concept of Precision should be, is that the character will likely die if they roll any low saves, especially if the attack does multiple points of damage. Then once it gets out of the character and gets to the squad's probably going to be fine because that's where the higher saves will go. So it will basically kill the character, maybe peel off a couple of guys, and then the rest of the squad's fine, which is what Precision should feel like. So I think it's a good change, and it'll speed up. This is a thing that will actually speed up combat because you're not going to be doing, again, like I'm going to roll like saves so many at a time until I've run out of guys. And then now this guy's down to 1 wound, so I'm going to roll him 1 at a time. Again, I'm guilty of doing that because you want to know that, like, okay, I've got to make saves on this guy. And then the saves are different when I get to the squad or the character or whatever.
Yep.
This solves that problem.
We were doing that yesterday in our Crusade games. I mean, once my Flawless Blades died, then I had, well, that's a bad example because it's the same one, but on the Eldar, they had different profiles that we had to roll against. And so you had to like roll those 1 at a time until you knew what was left on the character. So yeah, this will flip that on its head and hopefully speed up games.
Hopefully. And then we get a couple of examples of, well, this is how different attacks will, like, here's how attacks work, here's how you resolve the attacks, and then the other attacks, and then here's how you attack units that have characters. This is how the allocation should work, again, with plenty of diagrams.
Okay, I'll interrupt a little bit, Rob. I actually really like all the examples and diagrams they give, especially for visual learners. This is amazing, instead of just having a wall of text in front of you.
Oh, no, this is fantastic. This is the kind of thing that a core rule document should have. And this is great for new players, or even just for players who, like you said, are visual learners and are trying to wrap their head around, like, okay, so how does this work with the saves? How does this play out? This makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, kudos to GW for putting in some really good diagrams, honestly, throughout this document. There's lots of good diagrams, charts, breaking down how everything works. Like, even just like the hit roll and wound roll, it's like, okay, so if it's this, table, fail, very clear. Critical hit, fails. It's not just like, hey, if you roll a 6, it is considered a critical hit. The table makes it very clear. These examples of how attacks play out, very clear. This is all really good. Good examples when we get on the next section, visibility and other core concepts. Make it very clear, like, what is fully visible? What is, like, the difference between visible and fully visible? If I can see you, but there's something partly in the way of you, you are not fully visible. Same with the whole unit. So again, really good visual guides to make it very clear. And this is probably, outside of that coherency weirdness, this is one of the best clarified editions. The language is all very intentional. They've tried to remove as much ambiguity as possible. We're assuming that the app specific content is going to be written as clearly. Now, this is a well-organized book. Now we get into the round, and they've got that all broken down with charts and icons.
Before we get to the round, there's still more in that thing. Like, mortal wounds feels like it's changed a little. Well, no, it hasn't. It's normal damage first, then mortals, and then the hazard roll has changed.
Yeah, hazardous has changed. It is more likely to happen, but less likely to kill characters. Also, hazard rolls are now instead of just being tied to hazardous weapons, hazard rolls are any time that something might cause damage to you just by existing. So hazardous weapons, getting out of a destroyed vehicle, like doing an emergency disembark, these are all like hazardous rolls, or hazard rolls, I should say. So yeah, you now take a mortal wound on a 1 or 2, or at 3 mortal wounds if it's a monster vehicle, but that also means non-monster, non-vehicle characters are no longer taking 3 if they fail to hazard roll, but they're twice as likely, which does mean, ooh boy, getting a vehicle destroyed is going to be real harsh, because now you are taking a lot more mortal wounds, and they moved the deadly demise to after you disembark from the vehicle.
Yeah. And I'm also, for me, thinking about like all the plasma guns Dark Angels have.
Mm-hmm.
I like shooting hazardous. Now they're more likely to die. So, well, now they're more likely to take a mortal wound, but yeah, I guess it'll play out because I'll take more, but they're only 1 mortal wound, not a removed model.
Right.
So I guess it'll pan out.
Harsh. It's more harsh on armies like Guard, where you've got like plasma gunners.
Yeah.
Where it's like you are now twice as likely to just lose a guy.
Yeah, but it's just lose a guy, not lose the plasma guy.
Right. Because, yeah, it's no longer tied to the wounds are done to the model firing hazardous.
Correct.
Which is also good for like psychers who decide to push a power to hazardous.
Oh, like my Grimnar that has those 2 Corvs that are supposed to take the wounds for him that couldn't last edition?
Now they totally can and will and must.
And the Grimnar is going to be so valuable in this edition is my prediction. And we'll get to that
And also, specifically, if it does mortal wounds have to be placed on non-characters before they can be placed on characters. So that got rid of that weirdness of, okay, well, the character takes the mortal wounds, and now the rest of the damage for the squad still has to go on the squad, not the character. Now, also, the character is just part of the squad forever and ever. Amen.
Yes. That part of list building was interesting, nice. It also means like I guess they got rid of a lot of Crusade stuff, but you actually have to kill the squad and the character to get points for killing a squad because the character's part of the squad now.
Right, yeah, and you don't get like double points now for like killing the squad, then killing the character.
Yep.
So, which
I'll
does
be sad
make
for my Voton tokens.
Well, yeah. Battle round, pretty much the same structure as before. No big changes there, other than Battle Shock is now at half strength rather than below half strength.
And Battle Shock doesn't go away.
No, Battle Shock does not go away. I think we discussed that when you were out. And we knew like, oh yeah, Dennis is going to be a big fan of this. Real big fan.
I hate it.
It's also rough, strangely enough, for Blood Angels, because the Liberator Assault Group, and I think at least one other detachment, have the ability to, like, I can, like, a number of stratagems in, like, Liberator Assault Group where it's like, you can have this ability or this ability, but if you choose to dip into the Red Thirst and Battle Shock the unit, you get both. Now that's a real bad choice, because you may not get them back.
Well, they might have fallen too far to the Red Thirst then.
Right. Yeah. So it becomes a lot more risk reward. Also, like, once you are Battle Shocked, you cannot use Insane Bravery because you can't target a Battle Shocked unit with a strat.
I have some ways around that. Like the Grimnar I was talking about earlier, who can just unbattle shock a unit each turn.
Those units will be a lot more powerful, a lot more important. And it also means those armies that lean into battle shock abilities, like
got better.
Tyranids with Shadow of the Warp, or Chaos Knights, or like Drukhari, or Night Lords, Chaos Space Marines, where you're leaning into like battle shock and you get bonuses against units that are battle shocked. That gets so much nastier and potentially shuts down so much scoring if you can just push that.
Yeah, scoring and stratagems.
Yeah. No, Battle Shock is where it, I think, needed to be. Like it needed to be very scary. It never made sense to have abilities like, I'll Battle Shock you during your fight phase or during my fight phase. Oh, it's your turn. You're better now. No, it's like you're still shocked. Like that's the way it should be.
And I'm going to put on my old hat of like, remember when we had Fear? This is so much better than Fear.
Oh, yeah. It's better than Fear. It's better than the old morale system where you might start running away or just start peeling off
losing
models.
Having a Fear mechanic that famously doesn't apply to like 2/3 of the units in the game was a choice.
Yeah,
well, there was that famous saying about Fear or something like that. I don't remember
about not knowing it. Yes.
Yeah.
And you also had units even in 10th edition, like if you're playing Morven Vol with Paragon suits, you're running a unit of 4, you were never below half because the minute until Morven Vol was below half wounds by herself. Now it's like, oh, 2 of the suits are gone, you're at half. She has to now check for battle shock. That is a huge change, and make sure that like nobody gets away from the, oh, units of 3 are effectively immune to battle shock. We get into movement. We have several different clarified versions of movement, which feels a little bit like the Age of Sigmar rulebook, not gonna lie. It's a little stereo instruction-y for me, but it is very crisp and clear. And also, falling back is clearly broken out like, hey, if you're not battle shocked, you can do this. If you are battle shocked, you have to do that. Where, like, do you get to fall back normally, or do you have to make hazard rolls?
I mean, I was viewing this as a lot of like coding flowcharts.
yeah, you're not wrong. We've got our shooting, 4 different clarified versions of shooting: normal shooting, assault shooting, close quarters shooting, and indirect shooting, which indirect shooting always fails on 1 to 5 unless you have a spotter, in which case you always fail on 1 to 3. So it doesn't, ballistic skill doesn't matter.
Right, because they're just guessing. They're not actually aiming.
Which I think is fine. It does mean, rather than just having like a -1 to hit, or only hitting on like never hitting on better than 4s with indirect shooting, now artillery is going to be harder to use. And I think they've said that the points are going to drop on artillery units because they are going to be harder to use. That's fine. Indirect shooting is one of those things that can get oppressive really fast if it's too good.
So
hopefully
they're going to make my D cannons like better now or cheaper now?
It'll make them cheaper, and you'll want to have spotters to make sure that they're good. Which
Eldar have plenty of spotters.
Yeah. We have the charge phase. We've already talked at length about the charge phase and how the roll of the dice determines who you can legally target. Also, they do specify that regardless of how large your charge roll is with bonuses and such, you still can only target units within 12 inches. So there's no 13, 14-inch charges.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Aww.
Kevin's fine with it too.
Wanted to make that 20-inch charge.
Yeah. Fight phase, still clear, it's the same stuff they've talked about with the fight phase. A lot of the stuff we are aware of because they have revealed it over the last few weeks. So nothing really new here. They did change up how consolidation works. And, before it's like you can consolidate towards an objective or you can consolidate into a combat. Now it is, if you're engaged, you have to consolidate into the unit you're engaged with. If you are within 3 inches of an enemy unit, you have to consolidate into that. Otherwise, if you're within 3 inches of an objective, you have to consolidate, or you consolidate into the objective. So you can't be like, well, I'm not engaged with this unit, and even though it's closer to me than the objective, I'm going to go over to the objective. It's like, no, if the unit is closer, you have to engage. You have to push into the unit. So combat draws you in at like, that's the priority, is get into combat and fight. We get into the terrain rules, which we now have we've got the terrain area, the terrain footprints. We've talked about that. We have dense terrain and light terrain. Dense terrain, like light terrain, everybody can move through it. Dense terrain, only infantry, beasts, swarms, and mobile models can move through dense terrain. And then we've got the solid terrain rule, which is basically says that if a piece of terrain is solid, which is also dense terrain is often solid, effectively you can't shoot through any openings on the first 3 inches of height. So even if there are doors or windows, and also none of the models can be sticking out through the doors and windows. And it's basically clarifying in the rules there are no windows on the first floor that every event has adopted for the last decade.
But what if the terrain feature has windows on the first floor and I want to shoot through them?
There are no windows on the first floor. It's your imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like standardizing that. That's good.
And in invisibility, they do specify dense terrain features have solid rule. Line of sight cannot be drawn against any enclosed gap in the surface of such a terrain feature that is 3 inches or less from ground level. So yeah, this ensures the models are not visible while sheltering in ground level terrain. And 3 inches is the official height of the first floor. Although they say like some missions will adjust for that. We have the definition of cover, hidden, detection range, obscuring terrain, and also hidden. Hidden is a big piece of this edition where, like, if you are in a terrain piece, if you're in a terrain area that has one or more dense terrain features, so you cannot be hidden in light terrain. You can be hidden in dense terrain. As long as the footprint of the building has dense terrain on it, and somebody is outside of 15 inches, or that is the standard detection range is 15 inches, doesn't matter if they can draw a line of sight to you. No, they can't. They can't see you. There are lots of rules on individual units that adjust detection range. There's also a weird rule that is not in the core rules and is not linked as a thing you need to be aware of in the sidebar, but is in the app rules apparently, and that is called going to ground or gone to ground. For one thing, the gone to ground stratagem is gone.
Oh,
but now, yeah, gone to ground is an additional interaction between solid terrain and the hidden rules, and these are from the rules commentary in the app. Fortunately, Tabletop Battles, formerly known as Goonhammer, and some of the other content creators have gotten access to the app content, as I said, and this is the rule. Hidden models that are within solid terrain features gain an extra benefit while they have gone to ground. A model has gone to ground while all of the following apply. The model is hidden. The model is not fully visible to the attacking model due to one or more intervening solid terrain features. That model's unit did not make one or more range attacks during this turn or the previous turn. While a model has gone to ground, subtract 3 inches from the model's detection range, which means it goes from being a 15-inch lone op down to a 12-inch lone op. So you have to be within 12 inches to see them, not 15.
And then we'll charge them, and then they'll die.
If you can see any models in the unit that are, like, if you can have any units that are fully visible and are not behind the terrain, then the unit has not gone to ground, and thus you would be able to see them. It's also a weird rule in that it depends on the angle at which you're looking at the unit and the terrain. It's weird. That's probably why they didn't put it in the core rules, but the fact that there is no mention of it in the core rules at all. There's not even a thing that's like, oh, by the way, gone to ground is a thing, it's in the app. So that's going to confuse people, I think. We have rules on objectives. We've already seen these before. Nothing new here. Stratagems, again, nothing really new on how they're used. We have heroic intervention as our first stratagem that has an optional increase cost very clearly spelled out, where you can either do the traditional heroic intervention for 1 command point, or for 2 command points, you can just charge a unit that's within 6 inches, whether or not they charged.
I do like having tiers on things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also have the definition of snap shooting for Overwatch, which we had seen before.
And I have noticed there are units that you cannot do snapshot against. So it makes me think of if there's other things that snapshot besides Overwatch, those units might be immune.
Yeah, and because snap shooting is defined with an ID number 15.09, it does mean other things outside of Fire Overwatch could theoretically reference it. So there could be other abilities that do snap shooting. Yeah, that could absolutely apply. Also, the big thing on snap shooting is you cannot reroll hit rolls. And if you did snap shooting, you cannot start actions, which is a big deal in this edition.
Yeah, both those feel like big changes, because you're like, oh, well, it's an outside the shooting phase, so I didn't really shoot. And then also the fact that Space Marine, oh, that's my oath target, I'll just reroll all my stuff. Oh, I missed? Okay, I get to reroll everything. Or like the Tau marker stuff that's also less rerolls. So yeah, it makes Overwatch be a lot weaker now.
Right.
Other than Torrent.
Other than Torrent is still good, and that kind of Torrent should be good for Overwatch. It's kind of why it's there. Other noticeable changes, like grenades got changed to explosives, and anybody who has the explosives keyword also has access to the same stratagem, which is cool because there were a number of units who had, I think, especially in Gene Stealer cults, who had explosives but not grenades. Now they can throw explosives, and it's functionally the same. Crushing Impact replaces Tank Shock. Now monsters can do it too. The big change on Crushing Impact versus Tank Shock is you risk doing damage to yourself as well.
I like that.
I know there are people who are like, oh, this is a lot riskier. It kind of is, but it's also, if we're trying to make a more narrative cinematic edition, it makes sense that if I'm going to ram you, I will take damage as well. Like, I run the risk of being hurt.
Yep.
If your dice go to crap, you may hurt yourself more than your opponent.
Oh, dice never do that, though, right?
Never, ever. Not ever, ever. Also, counteroffensive has shifted a bit. In the fight step of your opponent's fight phase, you pick a friendly unit that's eligible to fight. They gain fights first now, and they must be selected as the next to fight. Fights first shifts where it happens in the fight phase. The downside on fights first for a lot of units is it is, I don't want to say pointless on defense if you have multiple units assaulting you. But on a fight, if there's like one fight between you and the opponent, they charged you and you have fights first, it does nothing for you.
Yeah, it's going to, like, another example from our Crusade game yesterday. Flawless Blades versus Banshees. I took the combat elixir that gave me fights first. So the turn I activated that was when the Banshees were close to me, because they don't want to attack me if I have fights first. But I also don't want to attack them because they have fights first. So that did stall that out, because either whoever goes first in that fight just wins. So
well, and the change in 11th is the attacker always goes first rather than
correct. So that means fights first isn't a good defensive strategy in 11th. You will just want to attack anyway, and then fights first would happen afterwards. So it's definitely toned fights first down. It still can be useful, but it's not as big of a deterrent as it used to be.
It also renders one of my units relatively worthless, which makes me sad. The Sanguinor, whose entire point of existing is, oh, you charged a Blood Angels unit, he deep strikes within engagement range of you. Unfortunately, his fights first will do nothing.
It lets him fight after one of the other attacking units fights.
Well, if he decides, well, I'll just drop down. Thing is, the Sanguinor is not any tougher than a normal Marine other than having a decent save. They could just decide to put their attacks in the Sanguinor and I get nothing. So,
yeah, the Sanguinor protected that unit.
Yeah.
See?
Not a great use for the. It's like,
I'm not saying that part.
Is it better or worse usage than spending 400 points to hold an objective with Fulcrum?
Hey, it won me the game.
I'm going to say worse, because at least their Fulcrum is doing something for you that. Like scoring objectives for you, whereas in this case it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna throw this speed bump at, oh, he's dead, okay, moving on.
And he's dead.
And he's dead. We get advanced rules, monsters and vehicles and how they're different. We get like the variation on big guns never tire. We also get the frame keyword, which is basically this vehicle, anything with frame doesn't have a base, so model from the whole, measure from the hull. We have transport rules, which are primarily the same, although they do specify that when a model is set up, it has to be placed as close as possible to the transport. Like, especially with emergency disembarks, you have to be placed as close as possible to the transport model before it is destroyed. Then you make a hazard roll, and then deadly demise will happen. We get the rules for attached units do specify that support units can't run by themselves, but leaders can. You can have both a leader and a support attached to the same unit. Talk about how keywords are shared, which is interesting. They had models with mixed keywords as a thing that was app specific, but they have it listed here. Then an attached leader, like an attached unit with a psychic leader or psyker leader, is considered a psyker unit. A little bit of inconsistency there, but that's fine. Rules for strategic reserves. We've got our rules for ingress moves. Flying and surging. Surge moves are now clarified as part of the core rules, and now we can just have one definition for everything that has a surge move, which is great. Fly is fixed. Fly is much better now.
Yay!
Fly is so much better now. I mean, it's like Pivot, but really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just subtract 2, and then you can just pick it up and move it through anything.
Right.
It's great.
Yay.
And then we have like other rules and abilities, aura abilities, faction abilities, psychic abilities, which psychic is also a keyword on weapons, which lets you ignore penalties.
I keep hearing that, but
it is listed in the reference section under let's see, psychic section 24.2 rule 24.29. Each time a weapon or attack is made with a psychic weapon, you can ignore any or all modifiers to that attack's ballistic skill or weapon skill, and any or all modifiers to the hit roll.
Okay.
And they are considered psychic attacks, which then gets back to psychic abilities 22.03, which says anything that is a psychic ability or psychic attack. So, like, if you have rules that interact with psychic abilities or psychic attacks, like Sisters of Silence, that it's like anything with the psychic keyword also counts as that.
Yeah, I don't know. I know they've sprinkled the word psychic throughout a lot of things, but psychic really just doesn't feel like it has the impact it had in previous editions. It's just like a keyword on things, and it's more likely, oh yeah, I've got saves against psychic, and so it feels like psychic's the worst option.
Well, now psychic, because it ignores any penalties to...
That'll make it better.
It makes it better because it ignores cover. Since cover is now, instead of being a bonus to saves, it's a penalty to ballistic skill, psychic ignores that.
Yep. So we'll have to see if psychic actually feels good.
Right. We've got the plunging fire rules, which we've already seen. Aircraft. So aircraft got interesting in the weirdest way.
I kind of like it, to be honest.
So aircraft don't move. Aircraft just come in via an ingress move. They cannot make any other type of move. And in fact, in the faction packs, most aircraft have been errated to have a movement of dash. So they come in, they drop in, they do their thing, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, your aircraft goes back into strategic reserves. They don't get to make plunging fire attacks because even though they are high in the air, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Also, you can't plunging fire against an aircraft because that would be silly.
Yes.
The knight cannot more easily, tower over an aircraft and knock it out of the air.
Yeah. What I like about all this is you have infinite positioning, because you can come in, set up your sight lines, hit something. If they don't take care of your aircraft, which they might ignore because it can't hold anything, it can't do anything on the board itself.
Of 0 or dash as well.
Dash, yeah. So then you just pick it up, and then next turn you reposition it somewhere else. And so, I'm thinking of the Eldar ones where you've got 4 lances, find that big target. It can't hide from you because you're just going to zip around to wherever it is. Mm-hmm. And then also, I'll just jump ahead on this one. We saw the thing about bombing, and I'm thrilled by that too.
Yeah, if you're not aware of what that is, a lot of the bombers have been errated in their appropriate faction packs. That because bombing required you to fly over something, and because aircraft don't move now, they just drop in and then disappear. You basically treat it as a weapon, quote unquote, with 24-inch range that does mortal wounds.
But to me, it's when it does the mortal wounds is what's important. Because it does the mortal wounds at the end of your opponent's fight phase.
So before they take off.
Yeah, before they take off. But it could be something like your opponent is prepping to get to a point. They've just denied you the point. Oh, well, my bomber will come in or not come in, they would already be in. But my bomber is providing protection to bomb that squad that just stole the point from you so you can get your point back. Because you wouldn't be able to on your turn. So I think bombers can play a role in helping protect and deny people stealing objectives.
And it also has the side effect of Your opponent still has the ability to destroy the bomber before the bombs trigger.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah, it's because, for example, the Drukhari Void Raven Bomber, which is the first one pops in my head. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, select one visible enemy model, excluding lone operative units. So lone op still protects you from the bombs. Within 24 inches of this unit, roll a d6 for each enemy model within d6 inches of that model. For each 4-up, the enemy unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. So, yeah, basically it's kind of drops down. We pretend that it flies over, lobs a bomb or something, and then it just goes away.
Because they're flying so fast, you can't see them move.
Right. Although they haven't updated all the legends that are flyers to work the same way. Because, I'm looking
Those
at
flyers
the Drukhari.
Are dead.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Drukhari rules updates. Razorwing Jet Fighter, Void Raven Bomber. They removed the hover keyword and changed the movement no C to dash. Right next to it is the Raven Strike Fighter, which still has a movement of 20 plus inches, does not have the hover keyword, is an aircraft. So
it's locked in. It'll be that way forever and ever.
Right. Although they did update it with the frame keyword. So they did update it. They just didn't update it.
Let's sigh.
And we'll get to that when we get to the faction packs. I have a couple of issues with the presentation on the faction packs. But back to the core rules. The aircraft changes, not all aircraft behave like that, because aircraft that were transports, obviously this doesn't work for aircraft that are transports. So aircraft that are transports and a couple of other cases where they need to be able to interact with things differently basically lost the aircraft keyword and gained hover if they didn't already have it, which hover now just says you ignore the -2-inch penalty for using fly.
So my now 700 or 690 point flyer that's also a transport, the Orion, can be on the board and probably not be a transport because it's bad.
It just becomes a hover tank.
Right.
Yeah, it is. I just wish it wasn't 690 points.
Maybe it'll change. You don't know.
I hope so. Oh my gosh, if it does, I might have to get it out and try it again.
Dust it off.
And then we get to our core abilities, which is basically our universal special rules.
So happy to see these again.
Where we've got anti-assault, blast. Cleave is our new one, where it's basically blast for melee. Also, I like the fact that they specified that there can be modifiers on these. So you could have a lethal hits vehicles. I only do lethal hits against vehicles, or sustained hits 1 infantry and beasts. They've also clarified in other places that there are you could have lethal hits non-vehicle. This only does lethal hits against anything that isn't a vehicle. Anti-assault, blast, cleave, close quarters, which is basically the equivalent of pistol, but because they want to be able to open it up to things that aren't specifically pistol, it's functionally the same, and eventually all pistols will become close quarters, but they have to support both right now.
This is my close quarter melt-a-gun. Ha-ha!
Yeah.
I mean, I think the tower doing that, right?
Yep. Yeah, they are. That's one of the reasons why this is in here.
This is my deadly close quarter heavy bolter.
Deadly Demise, as I mentioned, now happens after emergency disembark. So if you get out, if your vehicle is destroyed, you get out, you take your hazard rolls, and then it may explode behind you and do more mortal wounds. So transports are riskier now, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Deep Strike, Devastating Wounds. Devastating Wounds now, it has the errata worked into it from past balance data slates that Devastating Wounds do not spill over between models, unlike other mortal wounds. So that's the way it's been played for a while, but now it's officially part of the core rules. Extra attacks, feel no pain, fights first, firing deck, hazardous, which again, a unit selected shoot or fight after that unit has resolved all its attacks, make a number of hazard rolls equal to the number of hazardous weapons you select in this step, select weapon step. And remember, these do not have to go on the models that use the hazardous weapons. Heavy now has the change of you can move up to 3 inches and still have the benefit of +1 to hit. Hover, ignore cover, indirect fire, which uses indirect shooting, infiltrators, anything that used to have a 9-inch range for or a 9-inch bubble is now an 8-inch bubble. Lance is still +1 to wound on the charge. They admitted that was a misstep that they had made. They had spoken poorly when they said it was re-rolling wounds. Leader, lethal hits, lone operative, Melta, one shot, pistol, which says pistol and close quarters are identical.
There's a errata, or there was a change to Melta, because we'd been always playing it because you added it at the end, the way they had their math rules. Mm-hmm. Melta always happened after, like, damage got reduced to 0 or reduced down to 1. In here, it flat out calls out it's modifying the damage characteristic. So, like, Melta 2 wouldn't always do 2 damage. You could still 0 out the damage or reduce that damage by 1 or 2-1 if based on certain character rules.
Right, and there's an app-specific section apparently on modifying damage, like what order modifies go into, and having always subtracts and havings always happen after multiplication and bonuses. So, yeah, Melta will always be affected by damage reduction the way that it is now. Although there's not as many units now that have that straight-up damage reduction. They've started kind of peeling
yeah, all the ones I can think of, like the Satan shards and what, have removed the half damage to -1 damage.
Right. Precision, we've talked about. Psychic, rapid fire, scouts, which again, 8-inch distance on being within enemy models. Stealth, support, super heavy walker, which adds the mobile keyword, which allows you to move through terrain.
Yes, but their mobile keyword has a downside.
Yeah, you can Kool-Aid Man through a wall, but you might be battle shocked. Which, again, worse option now, because now you might not break out of that battle shock depending on your dice rolls. Sustained hits, torrent, twin linked, and then finally a continued in the app section rules appendix, which is just kind of you could have just kept going, we wouldn't have complained. Defining what starting strength and half strength is and how that applies to units that have like 1 model versus a starting strength of 2 models. They do mention that if you have a captain attached to intercessors and the intercessors are all destroyed, the captain is considered below half strength because the squad's starting strength was higher. One thing that is not in here and is linked to be in the app, we've seen the mention of the keyword heal and how regaining lost wounds and reviving is. That is not actually in the core rules and feels like something that should have been.
It's probably fine. It's fine.
Well, they've got revived. Yeah, it's on page 88.
Okay, they do have it on the very last page.
It doesn't mention healing, just revive.
No, it doesn't mention healing. Yeah. And then 5 little FAQs.
It's fine. This is fine.
This edition, like this rule book, is both very complete and feeling like missing fundamental parts of it at the same time. I cannot fault it on its organization. I cannot fault it on the way the rules are presented, all the diagrams and explanations of trying to remove as much ambiguity as possible. I like a lot about this rule book, but there's just something about, and we've decided to put these in the app, that I cannot judge yet because they haven't updated the app for the rest of us. So it's a little frustrating. And it's especially frustrating because there's a lot I like about this edition. There's a lot of things in this edition that I like how they've addressed. And I do feel like it is a good iteration upon what, like, 10th edition and the issues we had with 10th edition with, like, certain rules. So I like a lot of this. I don't want to sound like I'm a hater on this edition. I like a lot of this.
And I'm the same way. I hate saying it's a half wait and see, but until we see the other side of the app and how the app interacts with this, or does the app just have all of this plus more, it's an incomplete.
Yeah.
But for what we've seen, I'm enjoying what I've seen. I like the rules. I think I can almost play. Not yet. I need the cards, but yeah.
Well, and I will say, from the perspective of like, oh, well, it's not, we have to wait and see. Technically, it's not released yet. Like, it isn't fully out for another couple of weeks. So,
But Kevin, we're chomping at the bit.
I know. No, I agree. I'm not. Yeah, I'm basically in the wait and see mode. I'm not like going to ding it for being incomplete. I want to see how the app interactions work, and hopefully all of that is free and easy to accessible. And if that's the case, then maybe it'll be better to have them in there, and more stuff will move to the app. If it's still paywalled, that's a problem. So we'll see.
There's one thing you'll notice I have not mentioned at all in this discussion of the core rules, and that is army building and actually playing a mission. Now, missions, not surprising. The mission deck is the way that 11th edition is going to be played. But 10th edition had how to muster an army. Like, here's your point levels. Select your faction. Select your detachment. Select your units. Here's how many of each unit you can have. Here's how many enhancements you can have. Things like that. And then select a warlord. And then here's a basic mission you can play. And they did all that in 60 pages. Now, granted, there's been a lot of rules commentary and things that I think are addressed better in the 11th edition rulebook than were in the 10th edition rulebook. But the difference between the 10th and 11th edition rulebooks, minus the app, and I cannot judge the app because I do not have the updated app, I could hand someone the 10th edition rulebook and a codex and walk them through the process of creating an army, and we could play a game. You could play a game straight from this rulebook and a codex. You cannot do that with the 11th edition rulebook without the app, because apparently the muster army rules are going to be in the app as well. And that feels like, yes, we've been wanting digital rules distribution, but we wanted, at least for me, I will not attempt to speak for you guys, but for me, what digital rules distribution is yes, I can get the rules in a digital format, and they are an analog to the physical rules. They are side by side. They are the same rules, just delivered in different ways.
I think what we want, or the better way to say it, is we want rules accessibility.
Yes.
And if rules accessibility is a free PDF or a free app, that's fine. But like making the not paywalling the rules and making it so that anybody can access them, because getting the core, being able to play the game is the most, you need that to be able to do this. And that's going to get more people into the hobby. That's going to get more people playing games. If you cut down that barrier, if you're charging $60 just to be able to, access the core of the game, you're putting up barriers. So yeah, I think it's rules accessibility, and that goes hand in hand with digital accessibility.
Well, the other issue I have with having so many rules and so many like clarifications or definitions in the app as opposed to a second PDF where they exist outside of the app. Like if there was a rule, like a rules commentary or rules expansion that existed in the app and as a PDF separately, and there maybe that will happen, I don't think I'd have as much of a problem with this. Where I get concerned about it is if it's only in the app, I don't want this to turn into a BlizzCon style, y'all have phones, don't you, moment. You know what I'm referring to, right? When like they had Diablo Immortal and they're like, and no one wanted it as a mobile game. Like, well, you all have phones, right? It's like, yeah, but that's not the point. And I kind of like, the other concern I have is that for rules archiving purposes, for referencing rules, whether outside of having an internet connection or being able to print a version and have it as hard-coded, or just saving a version for later. Like before 11th edition wipes 10th edition off the Warhammer community website, I downloaded like all the current faction packs, the rules commentary, the core rules. Like I want to have like an archive of this is everything they released publicly for the game.
Oh gosh, I didn't think about that, Rob. Because for our Crusade League, we still have another month to go after 11th edition. I'm going to have to probably do the same.
You have a week to do it. I would start today. But that's kind of where I'm like, if you have all this rule clarification only in the app, you cannot download versioned versions of it. Now, I didn't keep like every version of a faction pack. I only grabbed the most recent one. But I have like all the balance data slates that I've downloaded over the last 3 years, like sorted by date. And like you can have all the points, like hey, version 1.1 of the points, version 1.2 of the points. I'm concerned that like we are going to lose the versioning on rules. And when 12th edition comes along in 3 years, as we know it must, because that's how the business cycle works, my concern is all the 11th edition rules that are referenced in the core rules that are required to make some of this work, because the core rule book says you have to reference them, will just be gone. What if 12th edition is another like 10th edition style revamp? Like every 2 editions now we're getting like a full rewrite, and then that Like the even edition is the rewrite. The odd edition is the revision. Because 8th, 9th, and I 6th and 7th didn't quite follow that because they were all still kind of generally following the same rules. Although 7th was absolutely a revision of 6th. But 8th new rules, 9th revision, 10th new rules, 11th revision. Is 12th going to be a revision or new rules? Are we going to change up the game every 6 years? And if we do, when 12th edition comes out, does 11th edition become unplayable because they've loaded so many rules into an app that is no longer supported and that like disappears from the app store that we can't play the game? Now, granted, most people will want to play the new edition.
Sure.
But it's good to have rules to like look back and compare and contrast and say like, what have they improved? What have, like, did they do this better in a previous edition? Or, hey, let's do Retro Hammer and play 10th edition or 11th edition. Like is it a big deal? Maybe not. And it's not going to stop me from playing 11th edition, obviously. But it is just one of these things like, I don't want this to get in shitified.
Yeah. I wish I had an answer.
No, there's not a good answer, unfortunately. And again, until we see the app and until we know if they're going to release this as a standalone document, which they could, and they might just be wanting to reference the app because the app will be like they can just link to the App Store. I think right now that QR code does not even go to the app. It goes to like Warhammer40,000.com. which doesn't link to the app, which, it doesn't even go where, like, doesn't go to the App Store, which it couldn't go to the App Store because, like, which App Store? Is it Google or is it iOS? So it has to go to the Warhammer 40,000 page. But, like, it feels like if you're telling me to get started with the app, that link should go to a page where, okay, here's where you download the app, and it doesn't. So
well,
I can't
and I will say, again, like, the edition doesn't launch for another week, so in a week, hopefully it will go to a link to the current app. So but it's hard to judge. Yeah,
it's hard to judge. This feels just incomplete enough to kind of give me a little bit of pause, which is a shame because like up until now, it's like everything I've heard about this edition I really like and I really want to try it out. So we'll see what happens. We've got a week to see how things shake out. We know there's more information coming next week, so we'll find out what happens. So anyway, that's discussing the core rules. We're going to go ahead and take a break for sponsor identification, and after that, we will talk about the faction packs that were rolled out and some of the things that have come out for that, including the game's first errata. But if you don't like ads and you want to hear an ad-free version of the show, you can support us by going to patreon.com/preferredenemies and joining our Patreon. We have a wonderful community on Discord, which you'll gain access to. So everything you get an ad-free version of the show. You get access to our Discord. Or you get access to any other materials we make. Once we have these rules in hand, I'm going to start working on updating the Urban Conquest set for 11th edition. So you'll have access to all that. And it's just knowing that you are helping support a show, helping us stay income neutral, and being able to do it without listening to a bunch of ads that you may not want to listen to. So that is one way to support the show. Second way to support the show is our merch store, preferredenemies.com/merch. And in fact, we just added a new design. I want to big shout out to Smarty Gwen, who did the artwork for us. But if you go to preferredenemies.com/merch, you will see we now have a Quivering Mind Meats shirt with a lovely Lictor cereal mascot who's getting ready to dig into just the squishiest, pinkest brain he could find. So if you like that as a shirt or a mug or a sticker, or if you want to check out our Shenanigans 40,000 shirt or Glorious Ineptitude or Anxiety Commissar, or just want to rep Preferred Enemies with the Preferred Enemies Target logo, we've got all that available on our store. So yeah, preferredenemies.com/merch. Finally, we do have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/@preferredenemies. The last month I was a little bit busy, so I wasn't able to get videos up. They are now up now for episodes 350 and 351. I'm going to try to get this episode up as soon as possible, so we'll get the flow back going now that Midwest Conquest is over. But basically, these are video versions of our audio podcast, but we want to get them in front of as many people as possible. So do all the standard YouTube things like subscribe, ring the bell, comment, help us with the algorithm. We really do appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to take a break for ads, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the faction packs. See you in a bit. And we're back. And that means it's time to dig into the faction packs that were rolled out over the last week. Monday through Thursday, we got a new batch of faction packs, broken out in a similar way to Midwest Conquest released or announced prizes for different factions. And that is Space Marines, Xenos, Chaos, non-Space Marines, Imperium. And they also did include what the detachment point cost for all the detachments were. Now, when they released the Space Marine ones, they did not include the force dispositions, but then when they rolled out the Xenos packs, they're like, oh, wait, we did want to put that there. So they went back and edited the previous article to include that. So we also now know the force disposition for all these detachments. Every faction got 3. Well, I shouldn't say every faction. There's a faction pack for Adeptus Titanicus. It got nothing new.
Same with the Imperial Agents when we get there.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what that faction is. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, neither did GW apparently. When we get there, we got the Space Marine detachments. We had the 3 detachments that they had mentioned in the faction focus, and in fact, in all of these, the only surprise was what wasn't there, because like everything was okay. Here are the 3 detachments we told you about. They are all 1 detachment point, as they had mentioned in the past. However, I will note as they went through detachments, like not all detachments are built identically. You know, most of them have a detachment rule, 3 stratagems, and a couple of enhancements, although that is not universal. The Librarius Conclave for Space Marines, which replaces the previous Librarius Conclave detachment, does not have any stratagems. It just has enhancements and a detachment rule. There are other detachments that do not have stratagems. There are some detachments that have a stratagem. There are some detachments that have an enhancement.
Well, I think a lot of the 1-point detachment, like the new ones, are meant to be like supplementary of like, hey, here's just something tacked on to give you extra things you can do. So yeah, they're not all going to be full-fledged.
Yeah, like the Librarius Conclave is a great example. It makes sense that if you're taking this, you're splashing in a couple psychers. Yeah, you have enhancements for those specific psychers. Why should we have like specific stratagems for 2 models or something? So yeah, I'm fine with this. I actually like this because it's hopefully will keep some of the bloat of stratagems down in this edition.
My only question that Librarius brings up, though, is which if you have the Librarians in one detachment, you're everybody else in the other, then how do you form units, and then that's a unit of both detachments, or
the detachment rules apply to the entire army?
Oh, they are going to apply to the entire army?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you took a 2-point detachment, for example, let's say you took the Vanguard Spearhead, which is one of the stealth detachments, and you took Phobos Librarians. The rules would apply from both the Vanguard Spearhead and the Librarius Conclave. So okay. So they would get both. Yeah.
Okay, that changes how I think, because I was treating them, I guess, like formations or detachments back in a previous edition where if you were this, you had to define which part of your army was in each one.
Not at all the case. It is basically you have like this detachment rule and that set of detachment rules, and when you combine them together, that's your army's detachment rules. Is the combination of whatever you've put together.
Got it.
We know what the army building rules are for 1,000 and 2,000 point games. They gave that to us at the beginning of April. And so for 1,000 point games, you have 2 detachment points. At 2,000 points, you have 3 detachment points. So at a 1,000 point game, you could combine a couple of these 1 point detachment together and have like 2 sets of rules. So like if you wanted to do a different variation on stealth, they have the Subversion Assets detachment, which is all Phobos and Scout squads, and the Librarius Conclave, because you do have Phobos Librarians, you could mix those into a single 1,000 point game detachment effectively. Where that gets a little interesting is that I think Subversion assets, you can build an entire army that is Phobos and Scout Squad, or very close to it, which makes it feel like that is a much more wide-ranging and maybe should be a 2 detachment point detachment, except that it only has 3 stratagems and a couple of enhancements. So it's hard to say on some of these little add-ons. Some are very, very focused, like the Fulguris Task Force, which is only like land speeders.
Yep.
Or the Librarius, which is only Psychers. But then you have some that are like, oh, there's some that affect your like when you get to like Necrons, they have ones that's like all your battle line, like all your warriors and immortals. It's like that seems like more than a one detachment point detachment.
Just like any other edition, they're going to come out of the gate with some balance being wrong on these, and they can make adjustments. Yeah. So that's just a thing you're going to have to, deal with until it gets until they figure out exactly how they're going to rebalance these and try to what works, because this hasn't been widely it's been play tested, but it hasn't been widely played yet. So people are going to break it. People are going to figure out where they can take advantage, and then they'll adjust and it'll all settle in eventually, just in time for a new edition.
Exactly. We also, they did release all the Divergent chapters, and they released Grey Knights on the same day as they did Space Marines, because they said even though it doesn't use the Space Marine Codex, they are Space Marines, so we'll go ahead and release them as well. Something people immediately noted. Now, we had detachments where we were, when they were doing the faction focuses, it said, hey, this detachment will have the blank tag and thus cannot be combined with any other detachments that has the same tag. So for Blood Angels, you have Legacy of Grace, which is a detachment for Blood Angels infantry characters. So it's a character detachment. It has the Grace keyword and says this detachment has the Grace tag and cannot be taken with another Grace detachment. One slight problem. We don't know what the other tags are. No detachment has been errated or updated with its tags. So we do not know what that can and can't be combined with.
Yeah, throughout the entire thing, I've only seen tags on the new detachments.
Right.
I would expect that this week they will go through and update those tags, or the other thing that will happen is those tags will get updated when a codex comes out. That right now there may be only one Grace detachment, and then when Blood Angels get their full update, in 2027, whatever, they'll add a few in there to kind of balance. Because again, I think they want to be careful about restricting things too much early on, and then by the time they go through and they do the full codex development, they will have a better idea of how those pieces fit together.
See, I've got a different thought. I think when 11th drops in the app, that's when we'll see all the updates, because I think they probably already know. And if you look at the download packs they've got now, all the new detachments are in a new style. The old detachments that are in those faction packs are the old style. I have a feeling when the new app comes out, they'll be all in the new style, and thus it'll have the keyword, because there's a specific spot on the new detachment where the keyword shows up.
And this is something that drove me batty going through these when they dropped. You have all the newly formatted brand new detachments, and then they didn't bother reformatting the old detachments. And I know they had the data sheets, and if for Space Marines and Orcs, they put in the new data sheets that do not replace existing ones but are actual new units. The Land Speeder has been added back. So we get the Land Speeder data sheet in the Space Marine faction pack. It has the new style that they did, because they did separate downloads of here are the units specifically from Armageddon, so you could play around with them and see what the rules are like for them. And they're formatted slightly differently. They look like everything's arranged in pretty much the same place, but they've got different font styling, slightly different presentation. They updated the other datasheets, because there are datasheets in the Space Marine faction pack that have had frame added for vehicles. There are characters who have leader replaced with support. We have the things that you would expect to make these work with the new rules, but they're in the old format. It's they went through and changed this in the laziest way possible. We did the bare minimum. And that bugs me. It shouldn't. It's a stupid little thing. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going to change the presentation on these, why not just do it all? Just do it all. You have the time. This is a new edition.
Yeah,
was this rushed out the door? Did you not have you had the time to go in and add keywords to things and change up keywords. Did you not have the time to give this a new fresh coat of paint? I guess not.
Reformatting requires effort. A find and replace is easy.
And it's a minor quibble.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the playability of this, but it's still just like, but you could have put a little more effort into it. It's stuff like that. Also, things that people noticed. There's a number of 3 detachment point detachments. Now, we expected that there would be some. We knew that it was like, hey, if it's rating from 1 to 3, there are going to be some that are 3s because they're really powerful. And one people expected to be 3 detachment points was the Gladius Task Force, because it's just good at everything. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it is a 3 detachment point detachment, which means, based on the rules we had been given at the time, put a pin in this, we will come back to it later, but based on the rules we were given at the time, that meant that at 1,000 points, you cannot play Gladius Task Force. You have to play something more specialized, which is a shame because it's a good generalist detachment to put in front of people who are new to the game. Other ones like the Armored Spear Tip and Ceramite Sentinels, which is one of the newer Ultramarines ones. The Stormlance Task Force, also 3 detachment points. So at the time, we're like...
The one I liked best in Dark Angels, Wrath of the Rock, 3 points. Deathwatch only has 1, and it's 3 points.
Now, we were happy to see that when they were like, well, Deathwatch isn't getting new detachments. People are like, oh, is Deathwatch just not playable? No, Deathwatch is still playable in this edition. There's a Deathwatch faction pack. Yeah, Black Spear Task Force is still around. It is a 3 detachment point detachment, which suddenly made it feel like, oh, can I not play Deathwatch at 1,000 points? You mentioned that Wrath of the Rock is 3 detachment points, and that's one of the most popular ones.
Yep.
You only had 1. Blood Angels got 3. And
Blood
they're the 3
super popular.
Yeah, Liberator Assault Group, Angelic Inheritors, and Rage Curse Onslaught are all 3 detachment points. I play 2 of those.
Not at the same time anymore.
Angelic Inheritors and Liberator Assault Group are like the 2 most Blood Angel outside of the Death Company detachments, which Rage Curse Onslaught is kind of Death Company-ish, but it is more like you're dipping more into the Red Thirst, but you're like, there's a little bit of stuff in there for Death Company, but it's like you're on your way to being Death Company. Now, you mentioned the keyword thing. There's the Lost Brethren, which is from the Codex, and that is a Purge the Foe detachment. That is a straight up Death Company detachment. So is Wrath of the Doomed. Doomed has the new Doomed keywords, can't be combined with another Doomed detachment, but as of right now, as of time of recording, you can run Lost Brethren and Wrath of the Doomed at 2,000 points and give your Death Company double rules. That seems like an oversight, which makes me think the keywords are going to be in the points document, that they are not being attached, because that's the other thing I noticed. Like on Monday when they released the Space Marine detachments, I was looking through like, okay, so they're going to errata in all the force dispositions.
Yeah.
No, those aren't in the errata. They aren't in the faction pack, which means those are also going to be in the points document, which means they can change them up on the fly, is probably the reasoning. They can like, oh, this detachment is too good at running these particular kinds of missions. We're going to change it to a different type, which then kind of puts the lie to the idea of, well, we designed the force disposition, so it's going to play the way your army is designed to play, unless you're too good at it, and then we may change it out from under you.
Well, the ones that are like that, I think would be ones that change to something similar, but like a recon one, I can't see them changing up, because a lot, like Wind Rider, well, skipping ahead, but jet bikes have recon. If they won't change that to like a Purge the Foe because they don't have the killing potential to do it. But then again, to your point, I don't see Wind Riders actually becoming meta or great.
Right. But hey, Space Wolves players don't have anything considered powerful enough to be 3 detachment points.
Yeah, the only thing would be Saga of the Beast Slayer.
And it's a still solid 2.
It's a solid 2, and that lets you take any of the other 3 1-pointers, which I like all 3 of their 1-pointers. They're really cool. And now that I know I could take both those and get it for the whole army, that makes like Beast Slayer even better with one of those tagged on, like Veterans of the Fang is Grey Hunters, or just champions as character. I mean, you've got lots of things you can do.
Right. So it's like there's a lot of flexibility in how things can be built with this, and I like having the force disposition data now that it's been added back to this article kind of helps give a feeling of like, okay, this is how it's supposed to play. And I do like the idea of having these one detachment point detachments that you can add on, which could shift your force disposition to something you know, if like I don't want to play, priority assets, or I don't want to play take and hold. Maybe I want to play reconnaissance. Maybe I want to play disruption. I can do that.
Yeah. Or the flip on the other 1 point detachment things is maybe it's scaled to a specific unit type to just buff up those while they're in your army.
Yeah. So it's like, I again, and we've talked about this. I kind of like what they're doing with this, but I'm already seeing, again, kind of like with the forethought that was put into the coherency rules, I'm seeing a few cracks here. I'm seeing a few things that at this point that we are going through it, like on Monday, like there's some stuff here that's a little weird. There's stuff here that isn't quite panning out. And I'm like, at the point that like that point, there's some serious discussion. Like, are Blood Angels unplayable as Blood Angels at 1,000 points? Because their main detachments, the things that make them the most Blood Angel-y, aren't playable, and Gladius isn't playable at 1,000 points as far as we knew at the time. Again, there's a pin in this. We'll come back to it. But we move on to Tuesday and we get the Xenos faction packs.
The one I was looking forward to the most.
And again, all of those come across. Eldari get the War Host and the Aspect Host at 3 detachment points. No one is surprised by the Aspect Host.
I am so surprised. Oh.
Although there were people again who were like, oh, I guess I was working on an Aspect Host army and I was going to play 1,000 point or 1,500 point, because 1,500 points they have clarified are played at 1,000 point level rules. So it's like
what I did like about the Eldari one is they have 4 1,000 or one DP.
Mm-hmm.
One for the Armored War Host, which is like a revamping of the one from Grotzmiss.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, as a 1 DP, it's good because you don't want this to be your whole army, but man, it does help your vehicles. Path the Outcast. Well, here's your one. The Rangers might not benefit from your other stuff. So here, have all your Rangers, Shroud Runners, give them some buffs. And then the other 2 are both Harlequins, which to your point, well, first I'll say, it's nice to be able to feel like you can splash in Harlequins and have them have something else. But then, like, to your point, Rob, both of these have the Harlequin keyword, and the Harlequin 2-point detachment does not have the Harlequin keyword, but we're all assuming it will.
Right. But yeah, like I mentioned, like not all of these one DPs are made the same. Necrons have the Hand of the Dynasty, which is their take and hold 1 point detachment that gives all their immortals and warriors assault. They can advance and do actions.
They don't need that either. Oh, that's going to be an auto take, I think.
And now it does have the Dynasty keyword.
Okay.
But hopefully we don't know what's going to have the Dynasty keyword other than they have a detachment called the Awakened Dynasty, which is already a 3 detachment point, so you couldn't combine it anyway.
We'll have to see.
So we don't know what, like, is that just there as like insurance? How is this going to work? But like that is a really solid detachment to throw onto anything, because it addresses one of the Necron's issues is they're slow. You can throw that onto a Cursed Legion, which is one of their new ones. They didn't need that. They didn't need that as a 3 detachment point option. I do want to mention other armies I play, like Tau. Tau has one that is practically an auto take, and that is the Advanced Acquisition Cadre. It allows your Pathfinders and Stealth Suits to shoot and still stay hidden.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Useful.
Yeah, very useful, and has 2 enhancements that are upgrades, which means you can spread them throughout your army, and 3 stratagems. Very solid. There's the Auxiliary Cadre, which replaces the older like Kroot and Vespid team up with Tau detachment. It is not as good as it used to be because it only affects Kroot, Vespid on one side, and now only Ghost Keels and Stealth Suits on the other side. It used to be like your Tau within so many inches of recruit did this, and your recruit within so many inches of Tau got this. And now they don't really. They have that a little bit with the stealth suits, but it's not the same thing. It does have the auxiliaries tag. We assume that Kroot Hunting Pack will as well, but we don't know. We don't know. It seems like it would be a bad idea to be able to combine those, but who knows? And then there's the experimental prototype cadre, which is another replacement of a Grotmust detachment. It has 1 stratagem and 3 enhancements, and its rule definitely got less good because it used to be all your weapons had plus 6-inch range. It is now only your battlesuit character units have plus 6-inch range. So it is definitely a lot down-powered from where it was before. And it wasn't that powerful a detachment before, in all honesty.
And then I guess...
And they lost fusion blades as one of their enhancements. So that is sad.
And then I guess, Rob, going back to the Leagues of Votann, which is my main faction, the Hearthguard Covenant is pretty much your Hearthguard one, and it says that. So we're guessing you're not going to be able to take the other Hearthguard detachment with it, because that's only a 2-point. Because only the Hearth Band got 3 points, which is also the main Hearthguard. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But Farseekers, I like this one because it gives all your Pioneers, Jaegers, all the Hernkin something to do and something to kind of buff them up. And then Armored Trailblazers, I like and I don't like. I like because it's really cool detachment. It really only buffs your Sagittars. It gives them the mobile keyword and scouts 6 inches. Well, the mobile keyword's an enhancement, but why wouldn't you take that? But so on the whole, you get scout 6 inches, which is what they had prior to getting the new codex. So here, let me pay a detachment point to get my rules back. But on the whole, I'm very pleased with the Votann one because, as I kind of mentioned to you guys ahead of time, in my head when I was like pairing up different lists, like doing all berserks, doing vehicles, doing need guard, I could, depending on how the missions are, I could feel happy with making a pairing that I can use any of the 5 dispositions. And that goes into are you building because of the way the models look? Are you building because of the way the list looks? Or are you building because, well, here's the style I want to play. Now let's pick the detachments for that style, then I'll start doing the army. So it's really getting me to think about different ways to kind of actually build an army. Which direction do you build it from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's some interesting discussions we had. Also, another possible conflict is Exhibition of Slaughter, which is the new Witch Cult detachment for Drukhari, is 1 DP. Purge Spectacle of Spite is 2 DP, which is also a Witch detachment. I'm assuming the Spectacle will get the Witch Cult keyword, so that they can't be combined.
Guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's just one of these things like we don't know yet, and they didn't bother to tell anybody. It's probably going to be in the points document, but we'll find out. Wednesday, we got the Chaos Faction packs. Couple of 3 DPs there, Packbound Zealots and the Creations of Bile and Renegade Raiders are all 3 detachment points. Pretty happy that Cult of the Arcaphane is only 2, so I'll be able to combine that with the Devotees of Destruction to make my Oblitz better. So I'm here for that. The World Eaters have the Berserker Warband as their 1 3-point detachment.
Yeah.
Which, fair.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Did Vessels of Wrath get toned down? I'm sure it must have.
Oh, yeah. No, this is quite a bit different. So before, like, the detachment rule was that you basically picked a unit or a number of units and were able to give them extra blessings. Now it's just when they go to fight, characters have either cleave or +1 AP, which is still useful. But the core detachment's quite a bit different.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because it's one DP. So, and again, I don't mind it being more limited to like characters and things like that, because that the detachment ability goes on characters, and then like the enhancements are only for characters. So yeah, that's fine. I haven't looked at the other ones.
They also did find a way to make World Eaters not just purge the foe on every single detachment. Yeah. They did give them access to all 5.
Yeah, but Kevin's just going to pick Purge the Foe.
I mean, yes, but that's not the point.
Emperor's Children, Coterie the Conceited getting 3 detachment points. No one is surprised by this.
I am shocked.
And I'm curious if Spectacle Slaughter, which is...
That's the Flawless Blade detachment.
Yeah, that's the Flawless Blades attachment. I'm trying to see, does it have a keyword attached to it?
It does not.
Hey, so you can combine it with the Peerless Bladesman to have like the... Although, I am sad that the Spectacle Slaughter ability is fights first, which...
Is it possible to have detachments like give you detachment points for taking them?
Yeah, that would be nice.
just asking for Emperor's Children players,
Yes, the fact that one enhancement on this one is an upgrade, so you can put it on 3 units, aka your 3 Flawless Blades units.
Right.
And
no, it's fine.
People can't snap shoot them, so hey, at least there's that.
Yeah, that's better than nothing. No, I joke. The whole time I've been saying that I don't think Emperor's Children are nearly as bad as everyone else thinks they are, but they're not great.
The biggest problem with Emperor's Children is still a lack of options.
Yes, I agree.
The detachments they do add here give a little bit more emphasis on certain units, like Flawless Blades. Like, the fights first is meh. The being immune to Overwatch is good. And the plus 2 inches of movement as a possible upgrade.
Those are both good upgrades. I don't think you could take both.
No, you couldn't take both.
If you could, I'd be really happy.
On the other hand, the Frenzied Host, where whenever your battle line units, so your Infractors and Tormentors, and make an advance or fallback move, the thing your army is built to do, their attacks get plus 1 strength.
Yeah, this one also feels decent.
This one feels very decent. It has the host tag. We don't know what else will have host other than Mercurial Host, most likely.
And also,
because that's the one that lets you just re-roll your advanced rolls.
Yeah. And I mean, this is also just a useful support unit because, like, one of the stratagems, if you're within 12 inches of another unit, you can just use it and say, hey, guys are over here, and increase the detection range by 6. So suddenly that 15 is now a 21, which is more likely to get hit by your Noise Marines.
Yes, very much so. So, no, this one is going to be really good to slot into other things. So it's like, yeah, there's definitely potential here. Like, there's ways to buff up other detachments. So I think, one of the goals is to add variety to army builds. So not everybody is just running, we're just going to run Coterie of the Conceited. People will find different combinations to use and play around with them. And I'm hoping that is what happens. Like, I would be curious to see how Carnival of Excess and Spectacle of Slaughter will play together. I think that one could be a lot of fun. Yeah, Death Guard, Thousand Sons all get various attachments. Chaos Knights, the Iconoclast Fiefdom, which was the We Bring Damned along, that got moved to a 1 DP detachment. Infernal Lance became 3 detachment points. No surprise there. Same for like Thousand Sons, the Rubricate Phalanx is 3 detachment points, as is the Grand Coven.
Ooh, here's this though, Rob. Houndpack Lance is only 2 DP, but Reconnaissance. That's going to be very interesting because their 1 point DPs are either Disruption or Take and Hold. I think this will hurt people who just did the small Houndpack a lot.
Well, Recon is also the one where you tend to score by being in table quarters.
Correct.
So they're like, they'll just want to move fast and swarm the board. They'll totally be fine.
Well, and that's right. Knights can do actions while still shooting. Okay, never mind. Yeah. I'm still in the old day when if you did an action, you couldn't shoot. And I was like, well, they can't. Oh, but you're right.
No, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
I'm sad.
And then they had questions that mentioned like, hey, there are questions about the frame keyword. And that is, just basically saying, what does frame do? It's, it was in the rule book.
I'll have us jump back a little bit. Chaos Demons is still there, even getting new detachments as well. So even though they said there's not going to be a codex, they're still supporting him. Yeah.
They're absolutely supported. It is still really, like, I'm glad that nobody got squatted this edition. Like, Deathwatch is still playable. Chaos Demon's still playable. Now, again, at this point, we're still thinking the 3 detachment points are unplayable at 1,000 points, which does still leave a lot of very popular detachments. But again, like with Chaos especially, a lot of these armies are still very playable at 1,000 points.
Well, and this was where I'll do my interjection. I think GW is trying to push everyone towards that 2,000 point because even the narrative deck has said on that page, they built that with 2,000 points in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Imperial Agents wasn't really playable in the first place.
This is very true. So yeah, we get to Thursday and we get the Imperial faction packs for everything that isn't a Space Marine. And again, a few things that aren't terribly surprising for Astra Militarum, Combined Arms, and Grizzled Company, which are both your just kind of weird, everybody gets a benefit. Those are both 3 detachment points. Adeptus Sororitas was kind of interesting because Bringers of Flame, which they had mentioned in their faction focus, could be combined with, hey, you might want to combine that with Chorus of Condemnation. You can't, because Bringers of Flame is already 3 detachment points.
I will do my small other interjection here is the Sisters player who likes Bringers of Flame. He's like, I don't know why that's 3 detachment points because they've already been nerfing it.
Oh yeah, it's been nerfed into the ground, so unless they decide to unnerf it, which they do not, they did not remove the errata from it in the rules updates. So it is still what it is. Also, Sisters have another detachment with no stratagems, the Sanctified Orders, which...
Oh my gosh, that's so good, though.
The detachment rule is kind of meh, but the enhancements are solid.
I mean, this is your, hey, I'm going to go put support characters everywhere, and they're all going to be buff.
Yeah.
And buff your units, too. It's like... And that's where Sisters kind of thrives, is they have so many leader or supports. So this is a way that the supports get even better, and then you sprinkle them throughout your army.
Yeah, so like there's definitely cases where in the past we've just kind of seen detachments are all structured the same way, and now we're seeing detachments that are not. And I think it threw a lot of people because it's like, oh, but my detachment is supposed to have this. No, the detachment is now just a package of rules you bolt on. Maybe that includes stratagems. Maybe it includes a stratagem. Maybe it's just some really good upgrades. We like having a wider design space, so I'm not going to complain about that. But I can understand why people are like, but wait. But yeah, that one is got a really solid upgrade. So no complaints here, really. Adeptus Mechanicus, all of their errata got, from the balance status slate, got moved into the faction pack finally where it belongs, and their codex is still unplayable as printed, but that is fine. Custodes, and then we Custodes, Imperial Knights, again, no big surprises here, although still no errata on how that Gate Warden Lance is supposed to play with your objectives being pieces of terrain. If what point on the terrain do you draw the line between 2 pieces? There's some stuff not that I think anyone played Gate Warden Lance, so it may not be an issue.
I tested it once when it first dropped, but to your point, Rob, that was once.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, so but it feels like that's one that they should probably adjust, or maybe it's one that just they're not going to bother because not enough people play it. If it becomes an issue, we'll address it, and it probably won't make it in the next codex, was my guess, or they'll do something very different with it. But then there was Imperial Agents. Now, we knew there were no new Imperial Agents detachments because they didn't get a faction focus, really. And I think everyone was very surprised, though, when every single detachment came across as 3 detachment points.
I was expecting 1s, to be honest.
Yeah.
So you could combine them together into...
And maybe the fleet would have been a 2, but all the Ordos, definitely 1s.
Yeah. The Assassins should be a 1.
Oh, yeah, Assassins should be a 1.
Yeah. And, and these, remember, detachment points, this isn't like an ally system where I can bring a 1-point detachment from another. No, it would be Imperial Agents only. The rules for Imperial Agents, such as they are, still allow you to ally things in. They just don't count as a detachment. So that's not the issue. But it's Imperial Agents is barely playable as is mostly only playable at 1,000 points. And suddenly we had an entire army where it was unplayable at 1,000 points according to the rules we'd been given. To the point where even Aspect Tactics got animated at one point, which is amazing because that man is the most chill PowerPoint reader ever.
Yeah.
But even he was like, what the hell? I mean, it wasn't much more, animate than that, but it was still there. It was there in spirit. Yeah, it's we're okay, so did you just squat the army without squatting it? It's still technically playable, I guess, but
so
no one
will. Flyers last edition,
right? You can play it, but no one will want to. there was a bit of an outcry. Like, Deathwatch players were already unhappy because they're like, I can't play at 1,000 points, and now I can't even play the Imperial Agents versions at 1,000 points. What am I supposed to be doing here?
I mean, I don't want to say don't play Deathwatch because I have models for that, but man, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it is what it felt like. And so, like, there was several hours, there was probably about 24 hours on the internet, maybe a little less, that people are like, what is going on here? Like, is this unplayable? Friday, they release the Event Companions set of documents, which is like the event, like for tournaments, team tournaments, and doubles tournaments, with different suggestions for each, and a narrative one, if I remember right, as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a Dominatus companion as well. So they released all of these, and first off, awesome that they released these as early as they did. I did not expect that, in all honesty. And they also released the terrain area footprints, which we mentioned in the first part of the show, where you can print out the terrain footprints. You don't have to buy them if you can get them printed somewhere. Very cool for GW to do that, and to have all these, kind of answering the questions of how does GW anticipate events being run? What is required here? And this was the one that really made me realize how crucial they see the app being, because every single event mission sequence is muster armies as described in the Warhammer 40,000 app. Not in the Warhammer 40,000 core rules, but in the app. They are leaning very hard on the app being a fundamental piece of, you must have this to know how to play the game, which I find a little problematic, but we've discussed that at length already. They also address the fact that in a doubles event, it's 2 players playing 1,000 points, or basically playing 2 parts of a larger army. And I do think they did a good job at explaining what a force versus an army, and how that works with certain core rules and how those change and interact. I think that was really cool. I do like that they've supported that and made, hey, we address this as a format we know people are playing. And having rules for team events from 3-player all the way to 8-player.
I will say my 2 thoughts on that is, one, if we adapt those rules, which we probably will, your command points are now shared as opposed to individual. So that's going to be a major change for doubles. Well, doubles, we were team doubles.
Well, in this case, team is like the Decepticon team tournament where you have multiple players pairing off against each other.
Yes, our group calls team doubles. I know team is the 5-player.
Yeah.
Overall team. So I'll change the doubles on my terminology. But the doubles, we played it, and then also the fact that they said, if both people are the Space Marines, you can actually use things on each other. But if you're not, you're just allies of convenience. Mm-hmm. So I found that very interesting as well.
So it does encourage you to play the same faction together.
It does.
But again, I like the fact that, this is explicitly supported with, rules that are spelled out on how this would be different than a standard game. I like the fact that for team tournaments, they very clearly spelled out, you have to repeat, before they were you can't share any factions. Now they're also you can't share force dispositions until you've used all 5. So it does support, again, up to 8-player teams, which also very cool, that they can support events small and large. And talking about how does the mission deck apply when you've got teams and things like that? How does that work? How do team rankings work? They also they have discussion on, this is how you should pair things for the main event companion. I don't know if they specifically mention Best Coast pairings, but they are officially paired with Best Coast pairings. So they kind of said, this is how you should set up your Best Coast pairings, based on a record, then win path, and then randomized.
The part of that which got me a little bit was they also had that how to set up pairings for the narrative stuff. I was
Yeah. And I think it's the side effect of having this vision of narrative and competitive play are the same thing. So they should function mostly the same way. And I don't know if that quite gets the vibe of where narrative players actually are. This is still kind of, we should give it a try. We should give it a fair try, a fair shake, see how it pans out. But also that is, remember, the pairings are a suggestion. You don't have to do it this way. This is like how we would recommend doing it, but you can do your own thing. So at least it's not you must do it this way, but you will very clearly have to spell that out ahead of time. We will not be doing traditional pairings. I am still sad that we haven't seen any thoughts or discussion of how to convert older missions, because they're leaning so hard into force disposition. Although I know the Dominatus deck has agendas that replace the primary mission if you choose to. It's a whole thing. I don't have those cards in hand, so I can't get into the details of it, but that's my understanding of it. But yeah, like these are good documents. They're good documents to have. However, because of the things that we don't have yet, we don't have the points document. They said that is the last piece. Like at the end, they said for next week, all the mission layouts will be available in the updated Warhammer 40,000 app 2. They were going to release the points document, the Munitorum points, next week as well. The other thing they did note, remember that pin that I've been putting into things, they did specify, kind of tucked away in the doubles event discussion on the Warhammer community article. So I missed this the first time because it was like, doubles events, I don't play doubles. I just kind of scrolled past it. While we're on the subject of doubles forces, we've seen a lot of questions about whether you can use a 3 detachment point detachment as your only detachment in your army at 1,000 points, a common size for doubles games. Our intent is to let you do so, and we will be making an update to clarify that in the first update to the muster army rules after launch. Effectively, you can always choose to pick any one lone detachment regardless of mission size, even if it costs more detachment points than that game might normally allow. Which raises the question of why, if these detachments are too powerful to combine with anybody else and too powerful to be played at 1,000 points, why there's a limit on them in the first place. Because some of these detachments are going to be more powerful than the more limited 2-point detachments at 1,000 points. And maybe again, it's the thought of, well, nobody plays 1,000 points. We all want people playing 2,000 points where it doesn't matter. But it still just seems like they didn't think through what the ramifications were of putting a lot of very standard detachments at a point where now you can't play it at 1,000 points. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think they overlooked those games because their tournaments are more focused on 1,000 points or 2,000 points. So they were focusing on balancing it all for that. But I do like this exception of like, well, yeah, you can take a single detachment, even if it's more detachment points at a smaller game. You're still constrained by points, so you're still not taking extra stuff. So yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, it obviously prevents you from combining other stuff because you're over anyway, and it's like, well, you do the single one. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think it works better for, when you play those smaller games, just makes it so that people can take the stuff that they've always been able to take before, and it balances out more at the higher level games, which is where they are far more concerned about balance being a factor. So yeah, I agree. I think they probably just overlooked it and didn't think about it until they got to the doubles and they realized that, oh wait, most doubles games are played at 1,000 points. Or they saw the internet backlash and were like, oh wait, we didn't think this through.
And I think that's one of my concerns. Like the way I want to be very clear that this is not me hating on 11th edition. I'm very excited for a lot of the things in 11th edition, but there's a few cracks here and there, and every edition is going to have it, to be fair. But at the same time, it's like there's little bits of sloppiness here that I can't say I didn't expect, but I'm still a little disappointed in. That's like, that should have been a thing you figured out. Like, at no point did anyone stop and think when you were working at, like, how late was this doubles document put together? How late did you stop and think about that? At what point did you even discuss, like, what the 1,000 point limit is? Is it just numbers you threw out there and didn't think about what the ramifications are? And it's like, yeah, obviously you didn't play test this. You didn't really kind of run the numbers on this. Like, there's got to be another way to address this that doesn't just feel like, oops, a -8 day errata. that we forgot to fix, and I'm guessing we don't
it's
know.
Still better that they fixed it.
It is better that
rather
they fixed
than just ignoring it.
Yeah, it's better that they fixed it, but it feels like something they should have had to fix in the first place if they had done things, if they had done a little bit more due diligence, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
no, for sure.
Also, the fact that the muster army rules are not in the core rules, but are instead in the app and are going to get an update in the app. So it's not being eroded, it's just being updated as a living rule set. I am still not convinced that this is going to be an extended living rule set any longer than 10th edition was, just because we know what the business cycles are and when they're going to want that infusion of cash at the beginning of their fiscal year, 2030? Because this would be fiscal year 2027.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate thinking about it like, well, what is the business going to dictate? But they are business. They are going to, that's why we have these 3-year cycles. Yeah. And I like the changes, but I'm just like, here's my biggest concern. And this is a thought I have not been able to shake, and it bothers me. The fact that the mustering armies rules, which includes the detachment point rules, which includes the force dispositions, the fact that none of that is in the core rules. None of that is in the print document. None of that is in the free core rules download, but it is only in the app. Makes me feel like the thing that they've been pitching so much about 11th edition is this force disposition thing. And now it's going to change up how you build your armies, and it's going to change how we do mission flow and everything. It feels like it is so mercurial, and only exists in a digital space. The argument could be made it's so they can change it more flexibly, and that may be true, but it also makes me feel like they don't have a lot of faith in it. And so we might get a year of it, and then 2028 rolls around, and they're like, wow, that was an absolute garbage fire. I'm not saying it will be, but let's say it goes badly. That was an absolute garbage fire. Okay, we're going to just scrub that element from the game. It's not mentioned in the core rules anywhere, so we can just completely change that, and it's fine, and no one will notice. I'm not saying that will happen, but part of me is afraid that it might.
Well, I mean, to play devil's advocate on that, if it is a garbage fire and it isn't working, being able to pull it out of the game is a good thing.
True.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's a company that released a new game and then said, don't use points. Yeah. And then, less than a year later, they're like, whoops. Yeah,
here's your points.
Here's points.
No, then definitely not one of those companies. Oh, wait.
That would never happen.
The thing I will say is, the double-edged sword of being able to do, more updated and constant errata is they are able to, fix things when the community is like, no, we don't like this. We don't want to do this. So it does give them flexibility. I don't know if it's necessarily they have little faith in it mechanically, or they just are like, well, we don't know what the response is going to be. I don't know. I think I see their point of keeping as much, keeping the stuff separated a little bit so that you can modularly go in and pull stuff out. The other thing too is that what's keeping events from being hey, we don't like GW stuff. Let's do our own mustering rules because screw that. Or a new event format pops up where it's okay, the mustering rules aren't in the core rules, so here's our own core rules. Here's our own mustering rules for our event, and you allow for sideboards, or you allow for different things. And there's potential there to be able to go in and create different formats and different things by having some of these rules being able to be slotted in and out. So I choose to look at it from the positive perspective, but I do get your concerns.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm not trying to say oh, this is going to be a disaster. There's just, like I said, just this little bit in the back of my head. Last night, I was really chewing through this, and I'm like, why does this bother me that these things that I would figure the way they've been pitching it are core fundamental parts of this edition aren't anywhere in print yet in this edition? And I'm assuming that when the codexes drop, these things, if they exist in the points document now, will continue to exist only in the points document. I don't know. And it strikes me as weird that like you have these 1-point detachments that have keywords, but we don't know how they interact with everything. And they didn't update anything else with keywords. When we get codexes, will any of these detachments have tags at all? Will they just be in the points document and say, you can't have 2 detachments with the same tag, which would be an easy way to do it. And I think part of that also comes from what I saw perceived as the sloppiness of not updating all the other detachments that are in the faction packs that they've added later. And I understand they also want to update like the codexes, but it's like, this wouldn't be an issue if all the codexes were coming out at the same time, but we know they won't be. So we don't know how long it's going to be before everybody's updated, because we didn't get everybody updated until 2.5 years into 10th edition.
So Rob is advocating for a full rules reset. Got it.
And that's the thing. It's like, I like the rules for 11th. Like most of them. I really wish Gone to Ground would have been called out in the rules. And there's other things I wish would be in a separate rules document if they're not going to put in the core rules rather than be in the app only. Because that's the thing. It's like, I want digital rules available. And like you said, accessible. I don't want them only in the app. I don't trust them only being in the app. And that's kind of where I'm landing. And I know there's plenty of people, myself included, that don't use the official app for a lot of stuff. We have like third-party services that we use. Like I use New Recruit for army building because it has Legends support and it has Crucible of Champions support, which the current app doesn't. There's plenty of people who don't. Like, I feel like the people who manage Wahapedia may end up eating real well in this edition. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's something to discuss. And yeah, is that technically a legal rule source? No, but it exists and people use it.
Yeah.
It's little concerns. And I'm trying to not let them like chew at my brain too much. And I want to I've got a week to go until this edition is out. I have less than a week to go until points are out, and we start seeing some of the other things that we're talking about. And so I didn't want to leave without mentioning one other thing that was not a faction pack, that was not a document downloaded, but they had 5 changes from Richard Siegler, who's the current 40K world champ. And he mentions the force dispositions and the fact that you really only have to focus on 5 missions for your particular army based on force disposition, and like how secondary missions work and terrain works. But the big one is points updates. So we already knew that there was going to be limited war gear points. And he specifically calls out, like, won't be on every unit with war gear, but units like Adeptus Sororitas Retributors or Adeptus Mechanicus Iron Strider Ballistari will have a lower base cost, but pay points for their best war gear, which means this will help eliminate the need to have like duplicate data sheets with slightly different weaponry. It also allows you to do things like, hey, maybe Retributors with multi-meltas cost more than Retributors with heavy flamers, but they can be the same unit and have the same basic unit rules without duplication. And then you don't end up with the weird thing, well, now I have 6 units of Retributors because they have different war gear. The other thing he mentions is point steppers. Some units will have point steppers where when you take 3 of them, the third one gets more expensive. And some data sheets will even do that when you take their second copy. So like he mentions the Defiler, which is currently broke as hell right now. Like so many Chaos armies. We mentioned this in our Midwest Conquest coverage, and it is apparently true everywhere. Double and triple Defiler armies are running roughshod. And so one of the things they're going to do is, hey, your first Defiler costs like 300 points maybe. Your second Defiler is going to be like 400 points. And your third Defiler will be 450 points, something like that. Now, I don't know if those are the actual points. I'm just throwing out numbers. But the idea that certain units that get spammed a lot may get more expensive the more you spam them. I like that. That's more levers for balancing.
Yeah.
While we don't have a points document, we should soon, hopefully not long after this episode drops. But that right there, I did want to mention that we know that points we're going to have a little bit more granularity, not a ton, but some, which will address some of the issues I've had with duplicate data sheets and the idea that they can just say, yeah, this unit is too good if you double it up. So now it's more expensive if you do. Now, will it be enough to dissuade people from doubling up something that's really good? Don't know. Will it put like, does it punch so far above its weight class that even at like let's say they each become 400 points, if somebody take 800 points worth of defilers, they might still, we don't know, but it gives them another tool for balancing. And I do think that as much as I have complained about, like, although all this stuff is in the app, it's in digital format, and maybe it doesn't mean they have a lot of faith in it, all the tools are also there to give them lots of levers for balancing. And that is something I have been wanting, so I shouldn't complain about it too much. Maybe it's just change. Maybe it is just a weird kind of change that I'm not ready for. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So I want to withhold full judgment. There's a lot of things I really like about this. So hopefully it's good. Fingers crossed. They've done a lot of things right, and they're trying to address the things that they feel like they may have messed up pretty quickly, because I'm glad they fixed hey, you can take a detachment at 1,000 points regardless, fixing it before the edition officially drops. So that's good. I'd rather, as much as I tease about a -8-day errata, it's better an errata than one like 2 months down the line when everyone's like, oh yeah, I guess Imperial Agents is just dead. But
I mean, they still might be.
I mean, they're not a great army. They need an army rule. They really do. But yeah, that's everything that's been released so far to the public. So we'll see what happens. Still kind of cautiously optimistic. Maybe not as wildly optimistic as I was, but cautiously optimistic. I'm looking forward to, in a week or so, getting my first games in. Hopefully with the points document, I can have like armies built and hit the ground running. I'll have to get some terrain bases for playing, but other than that, although technically
we talked earlier, I've got my terrain bases ready.
You only need the terrain bases if you're playing, like, any terrain base will work.
True.
It only matters if you're playing the official missions with the official layouts, which you don't have to. Also, they did provide all the official layouts in that tournament companion, which was nice. That thing is 93 pages, and most of it is terrain layouts, and then the rest of it is like base sizes, which they have kept those around, which is nice. They are definitely leaning hard into the terrain set that they have not released yet, as far as like this is the samples, to the inclusion of code letters for like, well, this piece of terrain is this one that we're referencing, and this piece is this one. You don't have to play that. I am hoping that tournaments don't feel obligated. I'm sure GW would love to sell that much terrain, but I'm hoping they don't feel obligated to exactly follow the dense/solid terrain layouts that they have here. But because one of the things in this edition is you should be able to use any terrain you want. It's the terrain piece base that is the most important thing. But we'll see what happens. I'm curious. It's like I will play around with it some, but cautious optimism for 11th that it will be good. I'll try to give it a fair shake. 10th was in a really rough spot when it dropped. I don't think this will be that bad. I don't think we're going to have like 3 months of Eldari summer. Hopefully. God, I hope. That is where we are. In a couple of weeks, I guess we'll have our first impressions. Like Dennis, you said you're actually going to be getting games in with the mechanics.
Well, ours is going to be later than our others, because we still are in our Crusade League. So we did like round 3 yesterday. So we'll do phase 4 in July. So it'll be in August when we actually, as a group, start testing out the rules on a big team game, or doubles with 3 teams on one board game. We're using the Maelstrom mission. So we use Maelstrom mission, but 11th ed rules, just to start easing into the rules. So I might have to do some side games on my own to just learn the 11th ed stuff, just to see how it is. But it's going to be very weird the next couple months trying to remember, is this 11th or 10th?
Right. It'll just different enough to throw us off. But
of course.
See,
yeah.
The positive thing for me is that since I don't get to play many games, I won't have that problem.
Yeah, you still
okay, so start practicing for the grand narrative then, Kev.
Yeah, I got to build that army, which I'm working on.
Yeah.
And by build, I know you don't mean list. You mean build from models.
Yeah, I mean like build and paint. Yes.
Yes. You've got 5 months? You can do that.
Yeah, I've got time.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
He'll wait till November.
That's not true.
Okay,
I'll
October.
finish it. I'll finish it in November, but I'll start now, just like I did with Voton. I started. The problem with Voton is they released a wave of models like a month before the event that I needed.
Fair.
Well,
and I had to scramble to paint those models.
But yeah, anyway, that wraps up episode 300.
Anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, that wraps up episode 352. Kevin will work on that army in the meantime. Hopefully we'll get progress. We're just going to hold his feet to the fire and make him accountable to all the podcast listeners, because that's what we do.
No. I'm going to have to start eating hats again. Oh, no.
Yeah. But yeah, that wraps up this episode. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with impressions of 11th edition. But until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and fingers crossed, let's not mess this one up.